You are currently the only person in this conference.
Hi, Shane.
Hey, Fred. Fancy meeting you in here.
Yeah, it's great to have 3 sessions, but I'm kind of wondering if anyone shows up, and actually, if nobody does, that's okay with me. I keep working on the
Yeah, I
on the
don't
next
know.
piece.
Also the time of day as well. I found yesterday about this time there wasn't that many people hanging around. Although I'm looking on the Moot site, there is a few people wandering around the site. So yeah, who knows?
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
So, is there a session at the end? Like, is there like a gathering session at the end where everyone's welcome to kind of do a post-mortem or just talk about the session, the mood?
Yeah, we do a wrap-up session. So Julian normally runs that. Yeah, usually quite a few people come to that one actually. So given it's only what 3 hours away now, yeah,
Mm.
I suspect people will be logging in.
Okay, cool.
I better go intro the other one. Susie's in that one. I'm running solo here at the moment, so
You're
get
good. Go
her
ahead.
going first. Come back to yours.
Hi, everyone. We'll just start in 2 minutes. Okay. Just asking the folks here in the session, have you heard about BigBlueButton before, other than outside the iMoot? Cool. Yes, we were at the Vancouver Moodle Moot. That was a good mood, too. Okay.
Hey Fred, Shane here. You're ready to go, I'm guessing? I can see you. You look ready.
Actually, give me just 2 more minutes.
Okay, all right.
Okay, everybody. I am ready to start. I'm just switching over to a different browser and do some testing. Okay, so in the next maybe 20 minutes, I'm going to give you a quick overview of BigBlueButton and the project, some of the statistics, some of our recent activities, and close my door. Some of the integration we have with Moodle, we have very deep integration with Moodle, and some of the items we've been working on in the upcoming release, which is really what we've been using for iMoot, which is kind of like a late development build. So we've done a lot of work over the last 11 months on this product, this release. So you've kind of seen a lot of it already. So our mission with the BigBlueButton project, and let me actually back up. I wear two hats. Involved with Blindside Networks, the company that started the BigBlueButton project. We're providing commercial support to iMoot. But for this session, I want to wear my open source hat, and I'm the product manager for BigBlueButton. So I've managed each of the last 10 releases, all the last 10 releases. It's only been 10 releases so far. So I've been working on the project since its beginning, over 4.5 years now. And our belief in BigBlueButton, our mission is that every student with a web browser should have access to a high-quality online learning experience. We intend to make that possible with BigBlueButton. That's what kind of drives us. So in terms of the positioning of BigBlueButton in the market, we're very much focused on the educational market. So at first we were like distance education, which was really much universities and colleges. And that's the roots for BigBlueButton. I'm talking to you from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. BigBlueButton started here at Carleton University. So it started first at a university, and then we spun out, formed a company, turned it into an open source project, and have pursued the traditional open source business model. But our focus for the project is now what we would call online learning, which doesn't have to be just a university and college, any context where there's a student teacher. And of course, this is a subset of web conferencing market. And web conferencing has maybe a larger set of features, things like remote control of desktop and so on, things that, you know, are kind of in the product, or parts of it are in the product, but it's not our focus. We think about online learning, and you know, the core capabilities of real-time sharing of audio, video, chat, desktop presentation can certainly be applied to many other use cases. So the use cases we think of are, you know, one-to-one collaboration, where it could be virtual office hours, coaching a student, improving student retention, the online tutoring. These are examples of educational-based use case scenarios. Small group collaboration would be a group of people coming together and all sharing their webcams, all talking at the same time. Well, maybe not all at the same time, but talking back and forth and doing collaboration. And then the sort of teaching part, where you've got somebody who has the presenting material, much like I'm doing here, to a group of students or viewers. And here we say that, look at our website, lots of the material says we recommend BigBlueButton for session sizes of 25 users or less. There's no hard-coded number in BigBlueButton, but not knowing anything about the hardware people install it on, we give very conservative guidance, because what we've learned in the past is some people don't really understand how to provision a server. They just look for the number, which is what the website told them the software will support, and they just install it on any server. So, you know, in a well-provisioned server, you can do sessions with 50 users. The iMoot keynote had 59 users. Again, these are not hard-coded numbers. But what we're really trying to say is BigBlueButton is not a webinar application. It's not designed for streaming to 200 users. That's a different architecture. It's a simpler one, where you just have one speaker, one webcam broadcast out, everybody listens. In BigBlueButton, you could have 15 people all sharing their webcams, all talking, the ability to talk. So in some ways, we like to think we've solved a harder problem. And there's a much larger market segment for small to medium-sized collaboration. And over time, we'll scale BigBlueButton up, but that's not our focus. It's these three use cases that are our focus. And you know, if you can cover up class sizes up to 50, we cover a lot of use cases. So some of the core functionality of BigBlueButton, which you've already seen: desktop sharing, audio, chat, slides, and video. Core capabilities. Some screenshots. This is an example of Mozilla using BigBlueButton. It's really a video chat application. There's 9 people here chatting away, and you know, one of them is larger than others. You just click on any of the pictures, you can see it larger. Here's more of a traditional. We've got some presentations, some chat, and some video. This is a screenshot that was tweeted by somebody who had just used our Sakai integration. So we support Sakai and Moodle. This is Blindside Networks supports these integrations. And we have very deep integrations with both of these communities. And I've been told this is Arabic for thank you. I think so. And here's another example recently where this gentleman's in Geneva. These are other sites in Canada. And they use BigBlueButton for hearing the presentation from Geneva. And then people have microphones at each one of these sites where they could ask questions. And there's one where 12 people are just chatting back and forth. So I always want to give credit to the open source projects on which we build upon. We wouldn't be here as a project without this. Two in particular, Red 5, which is an open source implementation of Adobe's Flash Media Server. It's handling all the real-time communication that's going back and forth right now. And FreeSwitch, this is handling the audio portion. So my audio is going in through the client, which is ActionScript or Flash-based. And Flash is the best game in town for accessing the webcam on Mac, Unix, and PC. Though we are doing work with HTML5, and I'll show you that a little bit later. The audio goes in through the Flash client to the BigBlueButton server, and then it goes to a FreeSwitch server, and that's where it mixes all the audio. The benefit of this is that we get to use provide dial numbers as well. And you can see in the welcome message there was an invite to pick up the phone and dial into a conference bridge if you needed to get the audio wasn't working or you were just on a very slow connection. So these two projects really are the anchor points for BigBlueButton. There's a community of support, both community support and commercial support. So if you're looking for help with BigBlueButton, go to this link. You'll see lots of mailing lists that you can send messages to. And if you're looking for commercial support, there's some companies there that provide it as well. Like Moodle, we want a very healthy ecosystem, very healthy community, and very healthy commercial support as well. I think it's a mark of a successful open source project when you see that. Some statistics of the project. In the last 4.5 years, we've had, I think it's probably now over 1,500 members now have joined our developer mailing list. There's definitely over 15,000 messages that have been posted. We got in the Google Summer of Code 2010. Google paid for 2 placements for students to work on BigBlueButton, and we had 79 applicants for those 2 spots. We have been forked now well over 1,000 times on GitHub, so lots of developers checking out the code, and we've been getting pull requests from others, which is so satisfying, I can tell you, from an open source point of view, when other people find issues and fix them for you and send you a pull request. We are localized into over 35 languages, and Mozilla was a great supporter of BigBlueButton. They had an accelerator program for open source projects called Web Forward, projects that were trying to move the web forward. And we graduated from the first kind of cohort from that in 2011. And I like to say BigBlueButton is the only open source project with a money-back guarantee. If you can't install BigBlueButton in 30 minutes or less, we give you your money back. In terms of some of the region support for BigBlueButton or the interest, this is the Google Analytics. So for the BigBlueButton.org website, about 1.1 million unique users over the last 2 years, and you can see we pretty much cover the whole world: United States, Russia, India, lots of places. I have some breaks down as well in the next slide. This is like the Google Code site, which is more the techie site. Just slightly less visitors, still over 1 million, and again, very big coverage around the world. So some recent events. We were just chatting at the beginning of the session. The Canada iMoot. So this was in Vancouver. I think it was early February. So this is Martin Dugumayas, and he's there doing a pre-conference session, and I'm broadcasting it with BigBlueButton. And this was a panel session on online learning, and here is BigBlueButton allowing people remotely to ask questions. What I thought was great about this panel session was they gave preference to people online asking questions. There were like 400 people in the audience here. There was a case study that was recently published by the University of West Scotland. This was Darren Ricketts, who talked about their trial and deployment of BigBlueButton. This case study won a commendation award from JISC. So you'll find this information on the BigBlueButton blog. I have a link to it at the end. It's just bigbluebutton.org/blog. So that was really good to see. Other learning content management systems are adding support for BigBlueButton. Docebo recently announced it, support for BigBlueButton. We participated in the Kansas City Hackfest, where we were hacking the HTML5 client and using WebRTC as well. And that's me in the middle. This is Calvin Walton, and this is Chad Pilkey. Chad has been doing a lot of work on the accessibility for BigBlueButton. Again, can't say enough good things about Mozilla. With the National Science Foundation and an organization called US Ignite, Mozilla came up with this Mozilla Ignite challenge, where they put $500,000 into a pot, invited projects to make proposals of how they're advancing the use of web, pushing it forward not way forward, but pushing the boundaries of it. One of the categories was education. So we made a proposal to build an HTML5 version of BigBlueButton using WebRTC, and we got funding in 3 rounds for it. So $45,000 altogether. That allowed us to have 2 developer summits where we brought up some developers from Brazil and in Toronto and put them up in a hotel for a week. It was for 2 sessions, and all we did was just code and hack and just try to push BigBlueButton as fast as we could. Some of the work for that actually went into this release as well, which was great. Some recent tweets. This was from the New Zealand iMoot. Tabitha tweeted about the keynote. The speaker had made this comparison of bad, okay, good, and the spectrum was Microsoft, Google, and BigBlueButton. That was kind of cool. So let me talk about the Moodle integration. So we really see BigBlueButton as complementary to Moodle. So where Moodle handles all the non-real-time, asynchronous, when you need to have that one-to-one session, that small group collaboration, or that virtual office hours, or the online course, BigBlueButton can provide it. So in terms of the popularity of all the hundreds of plugins, in the last 2 months, the downloads for BigBlueButton ranked 11th overall downloads. So we're very happy to see that. And in terms of the features that it provides, the integration, there's actually 2 modules you integrate with Moodle. One is an activity module that lets you create online classes, like courses. So when you clicked to join this session, you actually clicked on the BigBlueButton BN. The BN is for Blindside Networks. You clicked on this integration. So it supports groups, integration to Moodle Calendar. You can set it so students must wait until a moderator joins, and you can set the session to be recorded as well. The idea of setting students to wait till the moderator joins means you don't have to schedule the meetings. You can just simply say, okay, in my Moodle course, here's a link to a BigBlueButton session. And it's like the teacher has the key to the door. Students can line up outside the door, but they can't get into the class, the online class, until the teacher joins. That takes off the burden from the teacher of having to schedule, okay, there's 7 classes online, well, I'll create 7 activity links. You don't have to do that. Just create one, and whether you join if the class was from 7 to 10 and you join at 6:55 or 7:05, your joining actually opens up the session and everybody just comes right in. And there's a second module. It's the kind of resource module called Recordings BN. You add this to a class, and it will show you all the recordings for all the activity modules, the BigBlueButton BN activity modules, and let you publish and unpublish them and delete them if you have the permission. So in terms of, again, making really use of the Moodle resources, these plugins are available on the Moodle plugin database. We integrate with the Moodle issue tracker, so if you have issues, you can certainly comment on the plugin, or you can open an issue up for it. We use the AMOS as well in Moodle for the localization of the plugins. And then an overview of the integration. So think of it as you've got 2 separate servers. You've got a BigBlueButton server, and you've got your Moodle server. And these are 2 separate servers. One does the non-real time, the other one does the real time. So Moodle, specifically the Moodle integration, needs some way to talk to the BigBlueButton server and make API calls. So you would go on the BigBlueButton server and you would type in this command, and it would give you the URL and the shared secret. Call it a solve, but it's a shared secret. Those 2 pieces of information will allow the BigBlueButton BN integration to create API calls to the BigBlueButton server. And you just install it. You just have these 2 pieces of information here. If you download the BigBlueButton BN integration and you don't have your own BigBlueButton server, no worries. Blindside Networks, my Blindside Networks hat, we provide a test install server that's always running. So you can always join a room and try it out. You wouldn't use it for production, but it allows you to immediately try out and see, yes, the integration is working. I'm connecting to a BigBlueButton server. So when you add the activity link, you can see there's some parameters here, such as the name of the class. So this is what will appear. Some welcome message, whether you want it to open up in a new window, and whether your students must wait until a moderator joins. So that anybody who's enrolled in the course has the role of student, goes in as a student, called a viewer in BigBlueButton. Everyone else goes in as a moderator. I'll talk about that in a moment. And you can schedule it as well. You can set a join, open, and join close date. What that means is students can enter the class after the open date, and they can only enter it up to the close date. If the close date is hit, the class can still run. It just means nobody can join it anymore. The other settings you've got is you can specify it to be recorded. You can specify duration so that if someone lingers in the class, it will stop the recording at some point. The recording starts when the first person enters up to the last person leaves. And it has support for groups as well. So when you add it, this is what it looks like inside of Moodle. And again, in iMoot, it looked a little differently. They had an icon for it, but same link. And it's single sign-on. You don't have to sign in again. If you're a student, you come in as a viewer. If you're a non-student, you come in as a moderator. So in BigBlueButton, these two roles are viewers and moderators. Moderators have the ability to make somebody a presenter. And they can make themselves presenter or somebody else. This is how the teacher could have remote students presenting as well. I'm the current presenter in this session, but I could easily make someone else presenter because I'm a moderator in this session. There's the interface. And when the session's done, if it was set to be recorded, then later on you can go back and click on the recordings VM link, and this will pull the BigBlueButton server and say, okay, give me the recordings for all the activity links, all the BigBlueButton VM activity links. And here, this shows 2 of them. You can click here to view the recordings. And if you sign in as the teacher, you would have the ability to hide and unhide or delete the recordings as well. Students wouldn't see this, but you have some management of recordings right inside of Moodle. And this is what the recording would look like. It looks different now in the newer version, which we're working with now at the iMoot. Let me talk about the newer version. So every project has a development process. Moodle has it. The BigBlueButton project has one as well. We do development, we go to a beta, we do a release candidate, and then we do release. We are really just nearing the end of development. You're using, for the iMoot, a late development build of 28.1, which has been great. We've been working on this again for 11 months now. And even during the iMoot, we saw a few small things that we fixed. I'm not sure if anybody even noticed them, but you're using BigBlueButton. Even your participation in this session is helping us test BigBlueButton and helping us make sure that the next release is really solid. We're very close to a beta, and then we go to a release candidate where there's no more bugs. And literally, a release candidate for us is we just change the label from release candidate to 0.81, and then we're done. So in terms of this release, this will be our 11th release. Our priorities remain the same. It's stability. We hold stability at the top. We are prepared to work as long as hard as necessary to make sure the platform is really stable. So the last release for BigBlueButton had 4 beta tests and 3 release candidates. So we're building on top of that, but again, it reflects that our focus is on stability. Then usability next. Lots of work's gone into this release to make it even more usable. There's a lot of good work on the accessibility for students with disabilities, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then we have some features that we added as well. So this is a quick summary of the features. I've got some slides for each one of these. For record and playback, we add more capability. The previous release could only record the slides, but no annotations or whiteboard or mouse movements or pan and zoom, just the slide itself, the audio and the chat. This release adds to it the record and playback of all activity in the presentation area. So if I do this, it's being recorded. And the webcams as well. So record and playback, we know there's lots of things people would look for, like recording and desktop sharing as well, like start-stop button, like the ability to edit recordings. Our philosophy is don't try to do everything in a release because you would never release. But pick the things that are the highest value, do those, make sure they're super solid, and then just build on them. So that's the process that we're following here. Accessibility for students with disabilities. So with screen readers like JAWS, text tool for the whiteboard, a layout manager, some improvements to the UI, APIs for third-party integration. There's a JavaScript API now. We really updated the skin to make it much simpler and cleaner. And the support for the IMS Learning Tools integration, which we haven't made a lot of publicity about because we want to get this release out so when people hear about it, they could actually try it out. We're very close to a beta. So a couple screenshots. This is what I see on my screen because I'm the presenter. I see all the tools, and one of them is a text tool here. So I can just say, hi there. Everybody would see that. So this is great for tutoring and online. And all I did was I drew a box. I selected the tool, I drew a box, and I could type in the box. So there's a layout manager. This makes it a little bit easier for users to manage the layout. It also has the ability to control the layout. So if I wanted to just change the layout for everybody's screen and say give focus to the video, I can do that. layout would have changed for everybody. Maybe the focus here is more on the presentation, so I could change it so you now have a more presentation-focused view, and I can put it back to default. I've locked it because I'm the moderator, but if I unlock it, each of you now can use that button so that this is in the lower right-hand corner. You'll see this pop-up menu that lets you choose different predefined layouts. And these are independent. Everybody's screen size may be slightly different or the layout slightly different, but that's okay. You can do it on you have this control now. And if you resize the browser window, the windows will all resize as well. And then I'm just showing here, like I showed a moment ago, you can change the layouts. We had some fun, like if you just simply said, okay, make the video dock full screen and apply the black skin to it, you get basically a video phone application. So there's an example. Again, we clicked on one of the videos to make it a bit bigger. So the record and playback's come a long way. That's what it was. That's what in the current release version, that's what it looks like. And this is what it is now. So we record all the webcams. So if you have one webcam, you see one webcam. When a second person joins, it goes side by side. So lots of processing to make sure you see all the webcams as they were created. The chat, all the activity presentation area, and the thumbnail index so you can go back and forth in slides. Seneca College, it's in Toronto, has had 2 students working for a number of months on making sure BigBlueButton was accessible by screen readers. This means that if a student is blind or partially blind, they would still be able to use the interface by just tapping through it. Very important for online learning. And there's some simplifications. The previous version had 2 separate windows, one for users, one for the listeners. Now it's just unified into one. Much simpler. In fact, I think this is one of the things that I'm really happy about this release is that we added more functionality to BigBlueButton. We make the product more capable, yet we made it simpler. We made it more elegant, more easier to use. And I think anytime we can do that in a release, we're headed in the right direction. For developers out there, there's now the ability to control BigBlueButton through JavaScript. So you can have BigBlueButton in a div tag and then through a JavaScript API, change the layout or mute and unmute or join the audio. This will open the door up for more types of third-party integrations or people embedding BigBlueButton into their products, which is great. It helps grow the community and the ecosystem. And there's something which the people have been asking for over 2 years, which is the ability, again, more developer-focused, is to start up a BigBlueButton session, create a meeting, and have people join, but specify the parameters for each different user. So one user may join with one layout, another person may join with another. Maybe one person joins and that they can't share video, or their video button isn't there, but everybody else has. So we've had these requests in the past, and we now have the ability to let developers override the configuration, the default configuration, on a user-by-user basis. And again, this will allow BigBlueButton to be applied to more usage scenarios, more integrations, and make it easier for developers to kind of adapt and configure BigBlueButton for their needs. And again, it all builds the community. And the LTI integration is there. So you can run this command on the BigBlueButton server. You'll get out the properties, parameters for the LTI integration, and you can go to pretty much any LMS that supports as an LTI consumer, and it will work. And this is what the older UI looked like, and this is what the newer UI looks like. Again, lots of subtle changes to skin that all kind of add up. Really happy with it. You can test the latest release of BigBlueButton, but as I said earlier, you're actually using the latest release in the iMoot, so you are using it right now, but we have this developer server up as well. So I want to talk about the roadmap, sort of what's beyond this release. Certainly full support for all activities, record and playback of all activities, like desktop sharing. And there are some additional components that people would look for in a collaborative environment. One is synchronized video playback. So the reason I say it that way is one of the promises of BigBlueButton is you will never have to ask somebody, can you see what I'm looking at? Or can you see what I'm pointing at? We've designed the system so that if I zoom in and I draw a line right there and I put my cursor right there, I don't have to ask you, can you see that? It is exact on your screen. So in a similar sense, the synchronized video playback, if somebody has a video file and the presenter starts the play button and stops, it should stop at the same frame for everybody. And that's one of the components that we were trying to work on in the future release. We have polling there as well. It's actually been a lot of work done on it, but it's not quite ready yet for release. Shared notes, we did a prototype of this about 2 years ago, and we wanted to try to get it back into the finish it up and get it into the product, and breakout rooms as well. The reason you see these in the list is that it's a priority of features. So if I ask somebody, would you like recording playback or would you like shared notes, they would have said, well, we move on to record and playback first. And once record and playback settles down, what we see people say is, okay, what's the next thing you want? And they, great, record and playback is there. Can I please have polling or shared notes? So these are the things that we plan to do in the future. There's some other sundry things we want to do, like, if you were looking at a PowerPoint presentation, you hit F5, we'll just go full screen. All you'll see is the presentation. So we want to be able to do things like that in BigBlueButton. Definitely support for right to left languages. We don't want to disadvantage the folks who, Arabic or others. Again, it's just work to do, but our plan is to do it. And the things we've heard for the whiteboard, mathematical symbols, and shared drawing as well, especially in tutoring applications. We hear this more and more. So we have the presenter has the ability to draw, but again, we just have to add the user interface to allow the presenter to perhaps give other people the ability to draw, and then you can all draw at the same time. And something we're going to do pretty soon, I think, is just have a web page you can go to that will just check your configuration of Java, and you only need Java if you're going to be presenter and sharing desktop sharing. Otherwise, you don't. Version of Flash, your bandwidth, and so on. Just if that a user is having troubles, there's a way that they can get some diagnostics or some feedback to see, is there a problem with the network? Is they have the right version of Flash, and so on. Most of the time, it just works. Okay, so the last bit I want to talk about is the parallel work we've been doing on an HTML5 client. And in terms of the browser native, like HTML5 and what you may have heard of as WebRTC, or the Web Real-Time Communications Platform, which is a project underway by Google and Mozilla to enable a browser, JavaScript inside of a browser, to open up an audio and video stream to a remote endpoint without using any plugins. So that's pretty key. That's pretty important. But these two together will enable us to do essentially BigBlueButton without Flash. And I'll share with you what we've been working on. I want to make a point about the native clients. If you're looking for two-way audio on, let's say, an iPad, you're going to need to write a native application. So our belief is that the HTML5 client, just like Moodle headquarters have tried to write a native application and found that it's actually going to be easier to write an HTML5 app that just, the progressive interface that works really nicely on a tablet, much easier to do. So our goal is to be HTML5 first, and if Apple is unable or unwilling to support like WebRTC, then the only way you would be able to do two-way audio and video on iOS devices is a native client. And we're prepared to do it, but this is the stuff that we're going to do first. I'll share with you in terms of our roadmap. And that's the HTML5 client. So we're going to do this in 3 phases. Again, kind of going back to my earlier, if we tried to do everything in one release, we would just never finish it. So we picked the highest value thing. And for us, if we can create an HTML5 client that allows a user to join a session and see the presentation, and they see exactly what I'm pointing at, right? That's the promise we made earlier. See the webcam, the current presenter's webcam, and hear the audio from the audio bridge, and do two-way chat. That actually covers a lot of use cases where you have people who are joining from a remote client, maybe it's an iPad. They would not talk anyway or share their webcam, but they're participating in the class. They're asking questions. So that would cover actually a lot of use case scenarios. If you add to that the platforms that support WebRTC, that will be phase 2, where we could do two-way audio and video. And then phase 3 would be add the rest of the components to the BigBlueButton HTML5 interface so you can be presenter as well. And you can do whiteboard and everything else. So I've got some screenshots, and I'll show you some of the prototypes, some screenshots of the prototype. So this is an example of, in the HTML5 interface, what would be the simplest interface we could come up with. And really, the HTML5 interface is a chance for us to say, okay, let's envision BigBlueButton as you would expect it in an HTML5 application. So here, really, it's just showing the presentation area. The scenario is, I really don't care about anything else. I want to hear the teacher, and I want to see the presentation. But we've got a button up here that lets you expand like a toolbar at the top, so you could say, okay, I want some interface to show me the current users, maybe the chat, maybe the video, maybe mute or unmute the audio. And if I go a bit further, I can now see the webcam, and I can see the chat. This is actually the second design of the HTML5 interface, and what it reflects is a progressive design where you start really simple, and in a very systematic way, the interface just adds more capabilities. But it's really trying to be as clean as possible. So a little bit more would be is, I want to see the users list. The first design we had for the HTML5 interface actually had the users list always visible. But we realized people really don't really care about the users list. They're just going to, the focus should be on the content in the presentation. So that's why it's now just a button where you can hide and unhide it. So we have a prototype. Here's a screenshot of it. And this screenshot shows that you've got a list of users. So this would be whether it's on the on a HTML5 client or a Flash client, you don't care. This is just the list of users that are in the session. This is the current slide, and this is the chat back and forth. So going back to that promise, so here is a screenshot of me using the Flash client, drawing, making some lines, have a slide, and there's the cursor. And you can see over here it's the same, the cursor, the line, and the current slide. And actually there's one small line that's missing there, but we actually fixed that. So it is pretty much the same. And there's an example of it working on an iPad. So with the HTML5 interface, you can have it visible on an iPad or an iOS device as well. The difference, though, is the streaming of the media. So the streaming is limited to something called HTTP live streaming, which is literally just the iPad or the browser running inside the iPad is just simply pulling down chunks from a browser or from a web server of the media and just putting those chunks into memory and then playing the stream. The very simple architecture. The downside is it introduces about a 30-second delay between the time the presenter talks and the time someone hears it through that stream. And in many cases, it's not super bad because if you're just a viewer anyway, you're going to be downstream from it. But our goal is to do full support for the mobile device and the like an iPad through HTML5. So that's about as much as I wanted to talk about. If we sort of go back to, again, our vision is that every student with a web browser should have access to a high-quality online learning experience. And we intend to make that possible with BigBlueButton. And these are sort of some of the coordinates for the project. Starting point, obviously, is bigbluebutton.org, and it'll take you to all these other places. And at this point, I'd like to turn it around and be happy to answer any questions that folks have about the project. Thanks, Marielle. Good to hear, Solange. That's really good to hear, Trish. We had spent a lot of weeks preparing for this iMoot. When the good folks at Pukunui came to us like last December, they were like, would this be ready? Or it was actually early this year. And we said yes. So it's been really good for us to, to see it in use. And it's actually, your use of it is actually, confirming a lot of things that we hope to implement and make sure that they work. Finding a few small things, so we're really happy with the results as well. Morel, how much does it cost for school in Latin America? I should have made this more clear up front. BigBlueButton is open source. There is no cost for it. There's no license fee for it. So just like Moodle, you can go and download it and install it on a machine. There's lots of documentation at bigbluebutton.org to do it. It'll take you actually to a link at the Google Code site. But if this is all open source, BigBlueButton is open source, the Moodle integration is open source. You just need a server on which to install BigBlueButton. You can download and install the BigBlueButton plugin for Moodle, point it at your BigBlueButton server, and you will have everything that you see in front of you here. Except I should point out the dial-in numbers. You have to kind of pay for those. You have to go to a company that's going to provide you like phone numbers that will dial in. And there's some technical things about that, but if you need that, go back to that link about support in the community, but everything else here, and we're not using dialing numbers, I'm just using the built-in audio, it's all here. Great. So it's actually worth pointing out, we're not marketing people. We just try really hard to build a viable alternative to some of the commercial open source web conferencing systems. So a viable open source alternative to some of the commercial web conferencing systems, just like the folks at Moodle are trying to build a viable open source LMS that does a pretty good job of what you're looking for. So one of the best ways to help our project out, the BigBlueButton project, is if you blog or tweet or share experiences about it. And we're not marketing people, so say the good, bad, and the ugly, right? Our goal is to build BigBlueButton in hopes that other people find it useful, and we listen very closely on what we can do to improve it. And we think that the real marketing is what other people say about it, not what we say. So it's a good question, Shane. So all of the, so I do wear two hats. I'm one of the developers of BigBlueButton, and I'm also involved with Blindside Networks, and we're entrepreneurs as well. We believe in the business model behind open source, where first you build something that people care about, and for those that want the commercial support or hosting or branding or customization or integration, to offer our services to them. And there's no license fee, but we charge for our time and effort. We charge for support contracts. We charge for hosting. And it's like Pukunui and others, right? And we certainly, as many of the core developers of BigBlueButton, we're very much invested to make sure that BigBlueButton is very successful. So if we can make a very solid, each release is increasingly capable, increasingly stable, increasingly easier to use, a whole bit, then we are essentially creating a larger market for us and other commercial companies as well. Again, we want to help the ecosystem to offer their support and services. So we've been at this 4.5 years, and we've been growing ourselves based on the, having success with our customers, and growth is good. Thanks, Siggy. Don't worry, it's recorded. So Shane, so my recommendation would be is if you're looking for commercial support, I'll go back, and I would recommend just go to that link at the BigBlueButton.org website, and you'll see a number of companies there that can provide you commercial support. And depending on what you need, just reach out to them. Madad, yes, we are working on the HTML5 player. I will show you the screenshots, but you can listen to the recordings, and the bottom line is we're definitely working on an HTML5 player, and have been working on it for quite a while, actually, almost a year. This is an example of the prototype. So this is HTML5, and there's me drawing the Flash client, moving my mouse around, presentation, and so on. And this is the equivalent HTML5. This is not Flash. This is all a browser. And here's an example of our efforts to make sure that it works on an iPad as well. So we don't have anything we can demonstrate yet. There's still lots of good work, but we're hoping to have some demos over the coming months. But our focus right now has kind of been to finish up this release. We figure that's going to be the biggest benefit right now for the BigBlueButton community. Any other questions? Nadav, so in terms of the guidance for the number of connections, we recommend you use BigBlueButton for sessions of 25 users or less. We say that because we have no we have no control over what people install BigBlueButton on. And many people who look at open source software, they install it, they're not really that good sometimes in server provisioning or administration, so they just look for the number, which is what is this software supposed to support, regardless of the hardware. So we're very conservative. But we recommend BigBlueButton for 25 users or less, not for webinar applications of like, 100, 200 or so people. Just lots of other products that will do that. We're not trying to build one, not now anyway. Yes, we have actually done prototypes of WebRTC as well. We will expect to be doing more prototypes with it over the summer and fall. Our focus right now is finish this release, but the WebRTC work is definitely related to the integration with the HTML5 client. So we want to be able to provide a full HTML5 client for BigBlueButton, and then phase 2 would be the two-way audio and video using WebRTC. Yes, because Gavin found a bug in our product that enabled other people to do that. And I shall not talk about that bug during this session. That bug will be fixed. Yeah, we need to be able to do proper means to provide other people to write in a session. Gavin kind of found a bug which we had. No, it's not so good if the product does these kind of things which are kind of not really well tested or documented or anything. So for this release of BigBlueButton, it's very presentation centric. So only presenter is going to be able to do the whiteboard. And as I said earlier, this is on our roadmap. We just have to do it in a way that we've tested it. We don't want our release to go out and people say, hey, there's this undocumented feature that doesn't work. Why has this release not tested it? And it's because it's a bug. So we're going to fix the bug, and we'll have proper support for collaborative whiteboard editing in a future release. There's always going to be future releases, so don't worry. Lots of good things ahead. Yes, he found it out by chance, which was great. Again, this is we found a whole bunch of little things like this that we are just cleaning up. I mean, an interface has a sense of elegance when it's really simple to understand, fades in the background, and is consistent and has no surprises, right? After a while, if the only thing people say about BigBlueButton is, well, yeah, I used it. It was no big deal. I got the session done, or I presented my stuff, or I attended a class, and it's like good writing. If something's written really well, it kind of fades in the background. I read it and I understood it. What was the big deal? You didn't understand. What you didn't see was all the work to make it appear so simple and have it fade in the background. So that's what we're trying to do with BigBlueButton. We want it to fade in the background. The focus should be on the content and the collaboration, not on the interface. Nadal, so yes, we have it on our roadmap to support right-to-left languages as well. Well, there you go, Trish. So, I mean, we will have, you can see it right here. Shared drawing will be in a future release of BigBlueButton. Let me do this. There. Oops. All right. I think we're getting to the end of the session. Any other questions? And I think we'll close this off. And been very good.
Hey Fred, it's Shane here again. Just jumping in to say thank you once again for presenting. And let me echo Jen's comments there. Yeah, if anyone does need support, these guys have just been great with the iMoot, and I highly recommend them. They're awesome. Thanks again, Fred.
Thanks a lot. And thanks everybody for joining.
You are currently